Elias never meant to be brave. He was not a soldier or a hero. He was just a human translator, sent far from Earth to the ocean world of Lirata, where the air smelled like salt and light seemed to swim through the walls. His job was simple: deliver a data crystal to the alien royal archive and leave quietly. Humans were guests here, tolerated but never fully trusted. The palace of Lirata was not built like human buildings. There were no straight lines, no clear signs, no numbers on doors. The walls curved like waves frozen in stone. The floors were warm underfoot, almost alive. Every hallway looked the same, glowing softly in blue and silver. Elias walked carefully, holding the crystal tight, repeating the directions in his head. Third corridor. Left turn, archive chamber. But palaces do not forgive small mistakes. At the third corridor, Elias hesitated. Two doors stood open, both identical. One pulsed faintly with light. The other released warm air that carried the sound of water moving slowly. Elias chose the wrong one. The door slid open without a sound. Heat wrapped around him. Steam touched his face. The light inside was brighter, softer, almost sacred. The room was vast, carved from pearl-like stone. Water filled the center, glowing from beneath like a living star. Strange alien flowers floated on the surface, opening and closing as if breathing. Elias took one step forward. Then he saw her. The Tide Queen of Lirata stood in the royal pool, half submerged in shining water. Her long crest-like hair floated around her head like dark ribbons. Her skin shimmered with faint firelight, marked with ancient symbols of rule and war. This was the being entire fleets feared. The ruler who had never lost a battle, the most lethal alien, warrior woman in known space. Elias' heart stopped. He dropped the crystal. It hit the floor with a sharp sound that echoed across the bath. The queen turned. Her eyes locked onto him in every story Elias had heard. This was the moment when intruders died. Guards would strike. Alarms would scream. Blood would spill into sacred water. None of that happened. The room stayed silent. The queen did not shout. She did not reach for a weapon. She simply stared, eyes wide not with rage, but with shock. Almost fear. Elias fell to his knees so fast his legs burned. His forehead touched the warm stone floor. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaking. "I swear I didn't know. I was lost. Please." His words broke apart. He waited for death. Seconds passed. Nothing happened. "Stand up," a voice said softly. Elias thought he was imagining it. Slowly, carefully, he raised his head. The queen watched him closely. Up close, Elias saw something no human had ever described before. She looked tired. Her shoulders were tense. Her breathing was controlled, shallow, as if standing took effort. "You are human," she said. "Yes," Elias whispered. "My name is Elias." The queen studied him in silence. The glowing water rippled around her legs, reacting to her mood. Elias noticed something strange then. Her hand trembled slightly when she lifted it from the water. The glow on her skin dimmed for a brief moment before returning. She noticed his eyes linger and quickly lowered her hand again. "No one is allowed here," she said. "This place is forbidden." "I know," Elias replied. "I didn't mean to enter. I accept whatever punishment you decide." The queen looked toward the sealed doors. Still no guards. No alarms. "You should already be dead," she said quietly. Yet you are not. Elias swallowed. Then, why am I alive? For the first time, the Tide Queen looked away. Because, she said slowly, you have seen something you were never meant to see. The water around her pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and in that moment, Elias understood something deep in his bones. This room was not just a bath, it was a secret powerful enough to shake an empire, and he had just stepped into it by accident. Elias' knees burned from kneeling, yet he could not look away. The room smelled of warm water and strange alien flowers, the scent both calming and sharp, like danger wrapped in sweetness. The glow from the pool reflected in his wide eyes, casting light on his pale human face. He had imagined facing the Tide Queen countless times in training simulations and in nightmares, but nothing prepared him for her presence in person, unarmored, calm, and alive in the water. The stories of her cruelty, of her unmatched strength in battle, made him shiver. And yet, here she was, motionless, observing him as if she were measuring his soul instead of his body. You are not dead, she said, voice low, almost melodic. It had the weight of command but carried a strange softness. Most humans in your place would not have survived this long. Elias' throat was dry. I was not trying to, his words faltered. I don't even know how I opened this door. I was just lost. The Queen tilted her head, water dripping from her glowing skin, making little silver sparks in the air. Her eyes softened not completely, but just enough for Elias to sense a humanity beneath the warrior legend. She seemed fragile in that moment. Though every story he had heard described her as invincible, Elias noticed a faint trembling in her hands as she moved them above the water. Her glow flickered ever so slightly, and a tight line formed across her mouth, as though she was holding back more than just words. Something about her did not fit the tales of an untouchable queen, who struck fear across star systems. I should have you killed, she said finally, her voice carrying a dangerous calm. The law is clear. Intruders do not live. Elias swallowed hard, feeling sweat mixed with fear. I understand, he whispered. I accept it. Whatever you decide. She studied him for a long moment, water lapping gently around her. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke softer. You are human, strange creatures, fragile yet bold. You enter a place that should destroy you, and you do not flee in panic. Elias could not help but glance at her more closely. Her armor, the stories of steel-like skin, the invincibility he had read about it was all gone. She was just a being in water, breathing carefully, her shoulders tense. The power in her legend was there, yes, but so was vulnerability. I don't know what to say, Elias admitted. I only wanted to deliver the crystal. I never meant to intrude. The Queen tilted her head again, as though weighing every word. Then she leaned back in the pool, the water rippling around her like liquid light. Most would lie here and beg. You tell the truth. That is rare. Elias' heart pounded. He had read about aliens using fear and intimidation as tools. He had trained for diplomatic missions where one wrong glance could end a human life. Yet here, she did not strike him down. She did not even summon her guards. Instead, she sank a little deeper into the pool, water covering her chest, hiding her like a shield. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. I should warn you, this place, it is not just a bath. It is where the Tide Queen's strength is kept. And without it, Elia's eyes widened. Without it, She shook her head, water dripping from her crest. You should not know this. No one should. But the royal bloodline depends on these waters. Step away, and the empire falls. Elias felt the weight of her words. The most feared alien in known space, standing before him, was not invincible. Her power depended on something he could never have imagined, and he had seen it, accidentally, by walking through the wrong door. I won't tell anyone, he said quickly, panic rising. I swear. You have my word. The Queen's eyes softened slightly again. She remained silent for a long moment, water rippling with her faint trembles. Finally, she spoke. You may stand. Elias rose slowly, knees weak. Every step toward her felt like walking on fragile ice, every breath loud in the quiet of the room. He had expected rage, punishment, death. Instead, he had seen something no one else had, and that sight the quiet strength beneath her fear. The beauty and vulnerability intertwined made his chest ache with awe. The Tide Queen did not attack. She simply let him see her secret, and in that instant, Elias knew that the galaxy's stories of her invincibility were only half the truth. There was more, something fragile, something human-like even in her alien form, and now he carried it in his heart. It was a secret too powerful, too dangerous to share, and he was the only one who had stumbled upon it. Elias could not stop staring at the Queen. Every legend he had heard the stories of her unmatched skill in battle, her victories across 3 star systems, her unbreakable will suddenly felt incomplete. There was something fragile beneath her glowing skin, something the galaxy would never believe if he told them. And now, standing in the warm, silver-lit bath, he realized he was looking at the truth. She lifted her hand from the water again, and he noticed her glow faltering. Just a flicker, subtle enough that a careless observer might not see it, but he saw. Her skin, usually radiant and strong, seemed delicate, almost human in its vulnerability. She sank slightly deeper into the pool, wrapping her arms around herself. The shimmer of the water distorted her form, hiding her frailty, but Elias knew. She was tired, not just weary from duty, but weakened. You should not see this, she said, voice soft but trembling. No one must see this. I understand, Elias said carefully, his voice low. I don't want to hurt you. He hesitated, unsure if words could describe the awe he felt. I just want to help. She shook her head slowly. Help. There was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. Humans cannot help the Tide Queens, not truly. This bath, the waters, they are the source of everything. Without them, I decay. Without them, my bloodline fails. My empire falls. Elias felt a chill in the warm air. Decay, bloodline. His mind struggled to comprehend. He had thought aliens like her were invincible, eternal, beyond human weakness. And yet here, in the quiet of this forbidden place, he saw the truth. She was mortal, fragile, vulnerable. Her strength, the very foundation of her people's power, depended entirely on this bath, this hidden ritual that no outsider had ever witnessed. Her eyes softened as she looked at him. If anyone knew, if my enemies knew, they would poison the waters. They would destroy everything, and I would not survive. She lowered her gaze, letting the water hide her trembling hands. You have seen it now. That should never happen, and yet you remain. I won't tell anyone, Elias whispered, almost instinctively. Not because you demand it, but because I understand. I know what it is to survive when the world expects you to fail. I know what it is to fight when the odds are impossible." She studied him, a faint ripple of something unreadable passing over her features. A moment of silence stretched between them, the only sound the gentle movement of the warm, glowing water. Elias could feel the weight of her trust, the unspoken danger in simply being there. One wrong word, one wrong movement, and everything the Empire, the Queen herself, could fall apart. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is the secret of the Tide Queens. Our strength is an illusion, a carefully hidden truth. Our enemies believe we are invincible. But without these waters, we are weak, fragile, mortal. And yet, we must appear strong, always strong." Elias nodded slowly, his chest tight. "I won't betray that trust," he said firmly. "I promise. Not because I fear punishment, but because I understand the cost of this secret." For a long moment, she simply looked at him. Then, with a faint sigh, she allowed herself a small gesture of relief. "You are unlike the others," she said. "Perhaps that is why you live. Perhaps humans understand something we have forgotten." He watched her sink slightly deeper, into the pool, the water rising to her shoulders, hiding her vulnerability again. Yet he felt a strange connection, forming an unspoken bond between alien queen and human guest. He had come to deliver a crystal, and instead, he had stumbled upon a truth that could shatter empires, and now, carrying the weight of that secret, he realized the danger of his own presence. Every story of humans surviving impossible worlds flashed through his mind. They survived because they were clever, because they adapted, because they understood the balance of trust and mercy. And now, that same lesson applied to this queen. "You may leave soon," she said finally. "But remember this, you carry what no one else must know. Forget the legends. Forget my strength. Remember only this truth. Our power is fragile. Our survival depends on secrecy. And your life depends on it too." Elias swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of her words. The most powerful warrior in the galaxy, someone who commanded fleets and crushed armies, had just revealed her deepest vulnerability to him. A secret so dangerous that simply knowing it changed the course of everything. He nodded. "I understand." And in that moment, Elias realized he had stumbled into something far greater than any mission, any duty, any human ambition. He had seen the secret beneath the water, and nothing in the galaxy would ever feel the same again. The palace corridors beyond the royal bath were silent, but Elias felt the weight of unseen eyes on him. He knew the guards would soon arrive, armed and ready. Any moment now, the law of the Tide Queens would demand his death for entering a forbidden place. The crystal in his pocket felt heavier than ever, but even that burden paled in comparison to the knowledge he now carried the fragile truth of the Queen's power. The secret that could shatter an empire. The Queen remained in the bath, watching him with calm intensity. "They will arrive soon," she said. Her voice was soft, but carried authority. "The law says you should die. You have seen too much." Elias swallowed, fear clawing at his throat. Every instinct told him to flee, to beg, to somehow escape with his life. But as he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw something unexpected. A shadow of doubt, yes, but also a flicker of hope. She was not a tyrant in this moment. She was a being who had trusted him, revealed herself completely, and now waited to see if he would honor that trust. I don't want to betray you," he said, voice trembling. "Not because I fear the law, but because I understand. I know what it is to be strong only when hidden. I know what it is to survive when everyone expects you to fail. The queen tilted her head, studying him. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. Most humans would panic. Most humans would use this knowledge as a weapon, or flee and leave the Empire to its fate. Elias straightened, summoning every ounce of courage. I won't flee, and I won't use it as a weapon. I will protect your secret, not because you demand it, but because it is right. Because strength is not always about fighting. Sometimes strength is about choosing who to trust. For a long moment, silence filled the bath. The only sound was the gentle ripple of water, glowing softly under the warm light. Then the queen spoke, almost in a whisper. Then you make a difficult choice. A choice few beings in this galaxy could make. To stand, knowing the danger, and to protect what must never be revealed. To be human and yet honorable. The air seemed to grow heavier around them. Elias felt it pressing against his chest, a mixture of fear and awe. One wrong word, one careless action, and the guards would enter, and his life would end in the very place where he had discovered a secret he was never meant to know. You may leave, the queen said finally, but only if you choose to leave as an ally, not as a prisoner. Only if you understand the weight of what you have seen. Elias nodded. I understand. I choose to stand with you. To honor your trust. A faint smile touched her lips, a small flicker of relief breaking through the intensity in her glowing eyes. Few humans ever understand, she murmured. Fewer still choose courage over fear. The sound of armored guards echoing down the corridor grew louder. Elias' pulse quickened. He could hear their disciplined steps, the low hum of energy blades, the anticipation of enforcing the law. Yet he did not panic. He did not run. He stayed rooted to the warm stone floor, the light of the bath reflecting in his eyes, a promise forming silently in his heart. They will question you, she said. They will demand answers. They will test your loyalty. And yet you must remain steadfast. Their belief in the law is stronger than their understanding of mercy. Elias swallowed. I will remain steadfast. I will protect you and your empire. I will not speak of what I have seen. The queen's gaze softened, and for a moment Elias could see something almost human flicker in her expression. Relief, gratitude, maybe even hope. She gestured toward the shimmering surface of the water. Go now. Leave the bath, and remember, your life depends on your silence. Your honor depends on your courage, and your heart depends on your choice to protect what must never be revealed. He took a deep breath, rising slowly. Each step toward the exit felt like walking through fire, yet he did not falter. He had been terrified moments ago, kneeling before the most lethal warrior in the galaxy. Now he felt something strange, a new connection, understanding, the knowledge that bravery was not only about fighting or surviving, but about making the right choice when every instinct screamed for self-preservation. Elias glanced back once, catching the queen's eyes before he left. Her hands rested lightly on the water, the glow around her soft and steady. She had trusted him, revealed herself in a way no one else could ever imagine, and he had chosen wisely. The guards appeared at the doorway, weapons raised, but the queen's command held. Elias left without resistance, carrying not just the crystal in his pocket, but a promise in his heart, a promise to protect a secret too powerful to share. A secret that could change the course of the galaxy if revealed. And as he walked down the glowing corridor, heart still pounding, Elias understood something he had never known before. Sometimes survival is not about strength. Sometimes survival is about trust. The corridor outside the royal bath was quiet. But Elias' mind raced faster than any machine in the palace. Every step felt heavier than the last. He had survived the initial encounter, but the secret he carried pressed against his chest like a living weight. He knew that the knowledge of the Tide Queen's weakness could destroy her empire in a single whispered rumor, and now it was his responsibility to keep it safe. As he walked, memories of the Queen's eyes flashed in his mind, not cold and unyielding as the stories told, but tired, fragile, burdened with the weight of centuries of expectation. He thought of the way her hands trembled slightly in the water, the faint flicker of her glow when she was not hiding it. She had let him see what no human, and perhaps no alien outsider, had ever witnessed. He felt an unexpected surge of admiration mixed with fear. Not fear for himself, but fear for her. For the empire that depended entirely on this secret. For the fragile strength that the galaxy believed was invincible. Elias understood something in that moment. Strength was not always the absence of weakness. Sometimes it was the courage to endure it. Hours passed as he moved through the glowing halls, delivering the data crystal and completing his mission. The palace seemed alive with silent anticipation, as if every wall, every corridor, every whisper of light knew what had just happened. Guards watched him carefully, but did not interfere. He followed the Queen's unspoken command: remain calm, remain silent, remain honorable. By the time he returned to the human quarters, exhaustion had seeped into his bones. Yet he could not rest. He thought about the enemy fleets, the political spies, the rivals who would tear her empire apart if they discovered the secret of the royal bath, and he realized the true weight of human resilience. Humans survived on impossible worlds, against impossible odds, not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, adaptable, and sometimes merciful. Elias recalled the Queen's voice, quiet but full of meaning. You are unlike the others. Perhaps that is why you live. He smiled faintly. That faint smile held something more than relief. It held a Banda connection that transcended species, language, and politics. She had trusted him, and in return, he had chosen the path of honor. Later that evening, the palace gardens glowed with soft, bioluminescent flowers. Elias walked slowly among them, alone but aware that the choice he had made connected him to something far greater than his human perspective. He thought of the enemy fleets that would later attempt to poison the royal waters, and knew that his silence, his loyalty, and his understanding had already begun to protect them. The galaxy would never know the truth. Only the Queen, and he shared it. At night, he dreamed of the pool, of the soft, glowing water, of the Queen's eyes full of both power and fragility. He woke with the weight of the secret still pressing upon him, but also with clarity. Humanity endured not because they were unstoppable, but because they understood endurance in ways others could not. They did not break, even when faced with forces beyond comprehension. They protected what mattered, even when no one would ever know. In the days that followed, Elias worked closely with the palace engineers, studying defenses, reinforcing water systems, and ensuring that the secret of the Tide Queen's strength remained buried. He learned quickly, adapted faster than anyone expected, and proved that humans could be more than messengers or diplomats. They could be guardians. And in quiet moments, when no one was watching, he thought of the Queen again. He realized that the most dangerous battles were not always fought with weapons. Some were fought with trust, silence, and courage. Some battles required the strength to carry a secret too heavy for most to bear. Elias understood, finally, what it meant to be human, to survive, to endure, to protect, and in doing so, he became more than a translator, more than a visitor to a strange alien world. He became a witness to something extraordinary, and he chose not to break. The galaxy saw him as small, mortal, and fragile. But he knew the truth. Sometimes the human heart is stronger than the mightiest empire. The official story, carefully recorded in the human diplomatic logs, was simple. Elias had accidentally entered a restricted wing of the palace and had been immediately recalled. His memory partially wiped to erase any knowledge of what he had seen. That version would satisfy the bureaucrats, the historians, and the curious diplomats who pried too much. No one, not even the other human liaisons, would ever know the truth. But Elias carried the real story in his mind, etched into memory with a weight that no memory wipe could touch. The secret of the Tide Queen's strength, the pool, the fragile glow, the tremble in her hands was his alone to protect, and now he understood the enormity of that responsibility. One careless word, one slip of attention, could destroy not only the Queen, but her entire empire. For weeks after the incident, Elias worked with the palace engineers and strategists, though he did not tell them why. They knew him as a careful and competent human liaison, but in truth, he was guarding something far more precious. He learned the layout of the water systems, the subtle controls that maintained the pool, and the emergency protocols that would prevent disaster if an enemy discovered the royal secret. Each lesson, each careful adjustment, was a silent promise to the Queen. Her secret was safe. Then the test came. A fleet of rogue mercenaries, seeking to undermine the Empire, launched a coordinated attack aimed directly at the royal water reservoirs. Humans and Lerathans alike were caught off guard. Explosions shook the palace walls, alarms blared, and panic rippled through the city. But Elias remained calm. He knew exactly which valves to adjust, which emergency channels to activate, and how to shield the sacred baths without revealing their true purpose. The waters shimmered and glowed, hidden beneath protective layers, while the attackers' sabotage failed. The Tide Queen remained safe, her secret intact. Outside observers would later describe it as a miraculous defense by alien technology, but Elias knew the truth. It was human ingenuity, coupled with understanding, that had saved the day. When the battle ended and the smoke cleared, the Queen summoned him quietly. She did not speak of gratitude, or fear, or power. She only nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and respect. Elias felt the silent weight of trust pass between them, heavier than any medal, more permanent than any rank. "You did not fail," she said softly. "Most beings would have. But you carried the weight without faltering." Elias shook his head. "I only did what had to be done," he said, though inside he knew the truth. He had done more than that. He had become a protector, a silent guardian of a secret that, if revealed, could have torn the Empire apart. From that day forward, Elias' life changed in ways no one could see. His reports to Earth contained only the expected bureaucratic updates. His colleagues believed him to be diligent and competent, but he knew that the galaxy's balance rested in part on his shoulders. Every word he spoke, every action he took, was measured against the knowledge of the Tide Queen's vulnerability. One mistake could undo centuries of rule. One rumor could spark war. Yet despite the pressure, Elias felt something he had never felt before: pride. Not in power, not in recognition, not in titles, but in responsibility, in knowing that humans, small and fragile, could protect what was considered untouchable. That courage was not always about striking first or dominating through force, but about understanding, loyalty, and silence. He thought of the Queen often, her tired eyes and trembling hands, and he understood why she trusted him. She had chosen to reveal herself to a human, and he had chosen not to betray that trust. That choice, small and simple though it seemed, had preserved an empire. The galaxy never knew the truth of what happened that day. The story told to others was neat and simple, but in the quiet moments, when Elias closed his eyes, he could still see the silver water of the royal bath, the fragile glow of the Queen, and remember the weight of the secret he had sworn to protect. And in that secret he found the essence of humanity, endurance, loyalty, courage, and the quiet strength to guard what must never be revealed even when no one else will ever know. Elias understood, more clearly than ever, that sometimes the greatest victories are invisible, and the most powerful acts are those done in silence. Years later, in a grand chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy, the Tide Queen sat with perfect composure. Her empire was stronger than ever. Fleets patrolled the oceans of Lorata, and the court whispered of new alliances and trade. Yet beneath her calm exterior, a quiet memory lingered. One she never spoke aloud, a memory of a human who had walked into her forbidden bath and seen the truth she could not show anyone else. Elias stood among the human delegation, unassuming and modest, yet his presence carried a weight that no one else understood. He had long since completed his mission as a liaison, but the bond formed that day between him and the Queen remained unbroken. He did not wield fleets or command armies. He did not shine in the eyes of historians or conquerors, but he carried something far more important, a secret that could have ended the empire and had instead preserved it. During the council, a diplomat from another world asked the Queen why she trusted humans so deeply, why she allowed them close to her people's most delicate secrets. Sharian paused, her glowing eyes sweeping the room, then rested on Elias. Because, she said softly, her voice carrying across the hall, when a human sees your weakness, they do not always use it as a weapon. The delegates murmured, confused. She continued, her tone calm but full of conviction. Sometimes they become its shield. Elias felt the weight of her gaze and knew she spoke not only to the council but to him. He remembered the soft warmth of the royal bath, the flicker of vulnerability in her glowing hands, the trust she had placed in him that no law, no story, no empire had ever warranted. He remembered how fear and awe had transformed into understanding, how panic had given way to choice. The room applauded politely, yet Elias's mind was elsewhere. He thought of the water, of the quiet glow beneath the surface, of the fragile strength that had been entrusted to him. He realized that the galaxy often saw humans as small, mortal, and fragile, yet their true power lay in something invisible. Courage, loyalty, understanding, the strength to protect what others cannot, and to endure when everyone expects you to break. The Queen's words resonated in him like a heartbeat. Sometimes, she said, survival is not about dominance.